Daily bread, right? Most of us hear this, naturally we think about food, right? Those that grew up in church or you have a Christian or faith background, we hear the term daily bread and we know from scripture, give us this day, Lord, our daily bread. But what if I told you also that, when we hear the word bread, most of us think in a natural sense, food, but it's so much deeper than that. Daily bread is pretty much what you consume daily, what is feeding you. What you listen to, what you think about, what you believe, what you hear, what you speak, just what is poured into you each and every day. So today I want to ask the simple question. What's feeding you? Daily bread, right? First and foremost, before I get into it, if you're new here, you're just hearing me, you watch some of my videos, want to know what this is all about, do me a favor, check out some more videos. This one right here, Starving Yourself, on my last one, and subscribe, stay tuned. So let's get into it. Daily bread. When I reference daily bread, I'm not talking about these sweet old potato rolls, right? And this could be an aspect of food or nourishment that you pour into yourself. But like I said, it's a lot deeper than that. Not just physically, but whatever we're consuming, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, what are you feeding yourself on a daily basis? Is it just content? Is it just radio, TV, Netflix, binging movies? Is it gossip? Is it negativity? It's so much stuff that you feed yourself. But ultimately, what you digest, what you feed yourself will either grow you in a positive light or it will starve you and deter you from where you're trying to go. So just think about it. Let's say that you're, eating junk food every day, right? So you got you got your Twinkies. Do people still eat Twinkies anymore? But whatever it is, your donuts, whatever your vice is, you're feeding yourself, and ultimately, it's filling a void, right? It tastes good for the moment, but if you eat too much, if you consume too much of that, let's say on a daily basis, on a regular, not only are you committing gluttony, but your body will start rejecting it. You'll ache. Not only will you not be as healthy or be unhealthy, but it's going to have some side effects for the worse. So, and it goes the same. What we're putting inside of ourselves. Like I said, I reference a diet because that's more relatable. But even with your faith, there's so many things that we consume that we got to be mindful. And half the time we're just unaware because it's just habit. It's just nature. It's just in us to, oh, bam, bam, bam. Daily bread means daily. Scripture, the word, it didn't say weekly. Give us this day our daily bread, not give us this day or give us weekly, monthly, annual bread. But we need this on a regular basis. you know, um, because what feeds you today won't necessarily sustain you for tomorrow. That means that we can't rely on yesterday's consumption, yesterday's food. You know, there's a saying, for y'all know, I'm pretty sure you're aware, like, what you eat don't make me ish, right? And I hate to be as graphic or blunt, but kind of the same philosophy and concept because um, what you consume, doesn't necessarily impact me or what I digest yesterday or last week. Let's just think about for Thanksgiving, what I consumed then, and we're in a whole nother year. That doesn't sustain me or hold me over to this present time. So I'm going to need continued nourishment, a fresh perspective, a new assignment, new lease on life. Every day we're going to need something new. And I think about this. I had a call, and I recently attended this men's group. And shout outs to you guys watching, if y'all are interested, or you trying to link up with some more strong, masculine, like-minded individuals that got a heart for Christ, that are just out here making it happen, tap in with me, and we're gonna we got some programs, we got some things lined up, and we're gonna build this thing out. But I thought about something because in the group that we're talking about, um, daily bread, that we're talking about referencing, a pastor or a preacher when they give out a sermon or so, and how we need to come back and reference that. It's so true, because if you just think about how we just overconsume, and let me tie that back in. Like, if you hear a good message, a word on Sunday, right? That's awesome. You feeling good. You feeling good. Most of us, we don't come back to that message. It's just for a moment. It hit that spot. Whatever we going through, maybe we got convicted, whatever. It just hit us for that moment, right? Monday, Tuesday come, we are feeling malnourished. Famine. We're weak because we didn't pick back up and get that supply, get that food in us. So what sparked this is that if let's say you have a good word on Sunday, throughout the week, you need to reference, the scripture, whatever the teaching was, go back to it, study, as scripture says, study thyself approved, right? So, and this applies to anything. I find myself just over consuming, right? Let's say it's YouTube content or just self-help, whatever it is. After a while, that's going to be good for a certain period of time, but you need to span it out. Like, if I overconsume one day, I don't have the bandwidth come tomorrow, the next day, because I'm overwhelmed, I'm stuffed. You know what I'm saying? I can't consume it all in one period, one day, and just think it's going to ultimately last throughout the duration of time. I need bit by bit. Moderation is key, right? So this is what ultimately what I want to drive through and get the point across. So what are you really eating? So let me ask you, are you what are you feeding yourself when you first wake up? Is it this little device right here? Is it this what you're feeding yourself? Many of us are. This is the first thing we do. Before we say anything to boyfriend, girlfriend, our spouse, we'll flip this up, our kids, and we'll see what everybody else got going on. We feed ourselves comparison. We feed ourselves anxiety. We feed ourselves stress. We feed ourselves fears. Sometimes we feed ourselves motivation, encouragement, but we got to be mindful of what we're feeding ourselves, because ultimately what we're feeding ourselves will seep into our spirit and carry over. Sometimes we don't even know what we're feeding ourselves in. Things could be astral projected. We could be feeding ourselves from, a sense of someone else's worries and griefs. That's why it's important to watch the company that you keep. You could be around toxic folks that are dealing with some strongholds or so forth, and their energy, their spirit is on you. So ultimately you pick up on that and you're starting to feed their energy, and instead of you pouring into them, they're pouring into you, and you're feeding off that. You're hungering for that, and it may be somewhat unbeknownst to you. So we got to be intentional and mindful of what we're feeding. Be able to silence some of the noise and feed ourselves. And life, like I said, is about moderation. It won't be always plus positive. You know what I'm saying? But at some point, you have to have a reflection, take a step back, and be mindful. Another example, like actually earlier today, my son, I'm trying to, be the parent and father that doesn't necessarily shelter my kids, but give them a little bit of liberty. But I still got to be mindful of what they monitor, what they do, watch, and hear. So my son, he was, I guess watching one of those gaming YouTube shows, and I just happened to come in the room, and the kid is like, blah blah blah, f this, just cussing and saying a few cuss words, and so I talked to my son, like, hey, what's that? What you doing? He goes on, so immediately there was a conviction, right? He knew he was in the wrong. However, I had to instill and tell him that, hey, you know, that is, those curse words and all that negative stuff they're talking about, you shouldn't be listening to it. Once you hear that, something should register like, they if they talking about this is way too grown, I shouldn't be listening to it. I need to change this. Don't consume all that, because before you know it, you are going to be saying some of those words, acting out because you are consuming that. So it is very imperative and integral that we monitor, we watch what we say. I'm sorry, not, well, what we say, fraudulent slip, but also what we consume, what we put in our spirit. So even if I think a good task, what we can do, or what you can do is, for consumption, is write out a little to-do list. Things you can do for consumption. Write out a little to-do list. You maybe is your daily bread, your daily bread task to-do list throughout the days, throughout the weeks to come, and somewhat a checklist. You may not hit every point, but at least it'll keep you on a schedule, keep you timely, and then you can assess by the end of the night, what was I feeding myself? If I was sticking to some of my tasks and on point with things, I should be right on pace, right on target of what I was consuming. So, like, even for myself, like I said, sometimes you just overconsume. You consume some positive stuff, that will lift your spirit up. But then, let's say one of your friends, homies, send you, a video, a clip or something, and then we know how the enemy and the algorithm works. Before you know it, you in a rabbit hole, sparring down, and what was somewhat cool and funny sends you in another place, and then you deep dive in because it's attractive, it's alluring, it brings you in. So we got to be intentional and take some practical methods of being watchful for what we consume. So in closing, like I stated, intentionality is going to be a key. Be key. Watching what you speak, what you think, what you hear, your ear and eye gates. Just be mindful of what you're consuming, and you just can't live on food, these buttered bread rolls alone. Ultimately, we have to have a better diet of consumption, spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Spiritually, consume the right things that's going to edify the body, lift your spirits up. Emotionally, stay in tune, regulate your emotions. Somebody may piss you off and you going off on the deep end, but you got to reel that back in. Watch yourself, how you handle that, and what you're feeding in as far as your emotions, your mental. Maybe that's writing things down, mind to paper, pen to pad. Strengthen your mindset, reading books. Go back old school, actually read a book. Physical, that should be self-explanatory, but eating more conscious, healthy, a balanced diet in the gym or walking, running, whatever you got to do to exercise to consume the right things. So ultimately, leave in the comments, just, keep it a buck, keep it real. What's feeding you throughout the day? And what can you do to feed yourself the proper daily bread of nourishment? Until next time, if you really enjoyed these clever convos, we're going to keep this going. Like I said, like, share, subscribe, let somebody know, ask them what they're feeding themselves, what their daily bread is looking like. Until next time, we're going to keep making it happen. All right.
You reap what you sow. Your fruit got bad seeds. How you gonna reap a harvest if you don't water your seeds?